With all of the news going on about Bichette, we did an episode on Friday. We got tons of your guys' comments and responses. So we want to go through them and explain to you guys better what is going on in the whole Bichette situation.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First 2 as well on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Blue Jays. And a lot of you guys have been subscribing. It's been great to see. We've got some new listeners, and that's unreal. But we have a lot of comments that we want to get through, Carter. But I guess let's start here. The Blue Jays lose the series to the Yankees, and we will get into that. But with all of this stuff coming out about Bichette, there's just more important things going on in Blue Jays land as of right now, where we have to pinpoint down some of this stuff first before we can really dive deep into the games and give you guys sort of our thoughts. We know where the Blue Jays stand. The off-season stuff, the rumors, the everything going on, that's got to be at the top of mind for all Blue Jays fans right now. And I think we can't take it with a grain of salt. Any information is information, and that's more that we've gotten throughout the past few years, so we have to take it sort of as is. But Carter, I guess before we get into it, man, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Still in the middle of a long weekend here. Got one more day. We're going to be golfing tomorrow. Then we got slow pitch. Obviously, an off day for the Toronto Blue Jays, so we'll have a little bit of our time to ourselves. But overall, good weekend. Other than the Toronto Blue Jays baseball, obviously, Aaron Judge is really good at baseball. We were watching that Friday game. That home run he hit off of Kevin Gausman, that was absolutely ridiculous. 477 feet. Has, I believe, 40 home runs this year now. He's the best hitter in the league. I'll say it right now. Don't want to give the New York Yankees too much credit here, but Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are definitely fun players to watch. A lot of other players that need to step it up. The Yankees want to do anything. Some people are calling them frauds. I think I called them frauds last week. Again, the Yankees are a team that they're either the best team in all of baseball, it seems like, or they're just the worst team. And it's like, how is this team even fighting for a division title in the AL East? But overall, good weekend for personal lives. Not the greatest weekend for Toronto baseball, but that is a very common occurrence from what we've been talking about on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Aaron Judge hit a baseball 118 miles an hour off the bat, it's going to hurt any day. But, it's so frustrating watching Yankees fans complain and whine about their baseball team when some of it's valid. But, I mean, you're in the playoffs. You got a ton of wins. You got Aaron Judge. You got Soto. I mean, it's just like, come on. Like, how much more do you guys want here? We got a lot to get into, Carter. The comments were absolutely ballistic. And I was sort of doing a little bit of digging in between golf, baseball, the Jays, getting in some beers. I mean, it was a good long weekend. But I was reading through a bunch of the comments, and some of them were the same. So we picked out a few that weren't. But I think they bring up interesting conversations, and that's why we love when you guys throw comments. So like we said, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment. Tell us what you guys think going on in this situation. Where we want to bring in sort of more mailbags and stuff like that throughout this sort of remainder of the season into the offseason. So make sure you guys leave a comment, tag it, mailbag or something where if you want us to answer, we'll answer some questions on the podcast. But I want to get into the first one, and this is hilarious. This is Justin Powers, of course, our roommate, left us a comment. He was away for the weekend, so obviously saw the episode and left us a little bit of a comment here. And this one was more directed at me. And I am going to have a little bit of a rebuttal. I did it in the comments, but I want to put it out here because I think he brings up an interesting conversation, and that's why we love these comments. So he goes, Braden, I don't understand how you think trading Bichette will lead to the demise of this franchise. Do you honestly think that they can't find someone to replace him? That he is so valuable to this team that they would have to trade Vladdy if they trade Bo? If Vladdy is who they're saying he is, the Jays should be able to build a team around him, not around Bo. And I understand what he's saying. He's saying that it's possible to replace Bichette. It's possible to build around Vladdy. And I don't think it's impossible to build around Vladdy. I want to start that off. I think it's very realistic to think that. But I think in the time frame that it is, with all of these pieces that you've picked up, I don't necessarily believe that if you lose Bo Bichette, you have enough solid foundational pieces to pray and hope that you can bring up some of these younger guys. The biggest thing is going to have to be offseason signings. But Carter, I think you know and I know that you're not going to find a better bat than Bo Bichette this offseason to replace him at shortstop this year. I mean, as much as you want to talk about replacing Bo Bichette or hopefully some young guy comes up, Bo Bichette is exactly who this team wants. He's a hitter that's led the league in hits multiple years. I mean, outside of this year, he was bad. And there's no question about it. Bo was bad this year. But I think if you look at it as an entirety over his career, Bo Bichette was the guy that we were never worried about going into this season. The Vladdy was the question mark. So you need a guy like Bo Bichette to be an addition to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. There's not enough solid pieces around this team right now. George Springer, I mean, it's great that he's turning it up now, but it's too late, so it doesn't matter. So you need guys that are going to be heavy and hot from the start, and I think Bo Bichette is a guy that realistically I think should have a bounce back year. And you going in and praying to God that Leo Jimenez is the next coming of Christ, I don't think is the next best way to go about this either, Carter. So I did a little bit of a response to Justin. I said, I understand what you're saying. My point was that there aren't enough stars on this team to become a World Series champion. In that case, I would think that the management will want to move on. And what I ended up saying was I believe that they need to keep Bo Bichette if they're going to make a World Series push, like they keep trying to nail into fans that this is going to be a contending team moving forward. We're going to make the moves that need to be moved. He then responded with sort of an interesting comparison about the Edmonton Oilers and re-signing Leon Draisaitl to fit the piece of Connor McDavid. It's an okay comparison, but baseball and hockey are very, very different things, right? Connor McDavid can be on the ice for 40 minutes a game and skate around everybody because he's the best player hockey's seen since Wayne Gretzky. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. isn't the second coming of Babe Ruth. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can only do so much. He gets one at-bat every 9 at-bats. He can't be batting in the lineup for everybody else. So you need strong pieces to surround him with. And a guy like Bo Bichette is a strong piece. Bo Bichette is, as much as people don't want to hear it, he's a superstar. He is a superstar in this league. He's been fantastic up until this season. And this team needs superstars. And I fully don't believe that this management group will go out and sign any more superstars, Carter, in the offseason. I just don't think it's going to happen. We haven't seen it yet. So I think the Bo Bichette piece is, if he doesn't re-sign, George Springer's getting up in age, talking about the demise. I don't think it's a demise of a franchise necessarily. But I think then you start looking at a more realistic rebuild if Bo Bichette doesn't stay here.
There's a bunch of things that you kind of covered there. So I'm gonna start with this. Going into this season, for me anyway, I think a lot of Blue Jays fans are going to agree with this. You're looking at your top 3 batters in this order. You're looking at George Springer probably as your number 1 guy, Bo Bichette as number 2, and Vladdy as number 3. You want Bo Bichette to be getting singles. You want him to be getting on for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because when he's playing like this recent stretch that he's had, he has been one of the best hitters, if not the best hitter in baseball since the All-Star break. If you can get runners on for Vladdy, he's going to be able to do damage, and he's going to be able to drive in runs. So looking at Bo Bichette, yes, if you trade away Bo Bichette right now, you're not going to get a better hitter for next season, probably the season after that. If anything, you're going to have to take chances on prospects. As for Bo Bichette and like this Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid comparison, I have to agree with you there. Vladdy is not Connor McDavid. There's like the comparison there. Like maybe you got Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani. That would be more so like Connor McDavid. Again, if Vladdy can keep this up and continue playing how he is right now, sure, maybe you can make a little bit more of an argument for it. But I guess for me, you can kind of compare this. Again, this isn't necessarily fair this season, but Vladdy to like an Aaron Judge, Juan Soto thing. If you look at those two players, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, those two are capable of carrying a team to the playoffs, carrying a team to the World Series. So you don't necessarily need all this depth when you have 2 of the best players in all of baseball on the same team, both of them having career years raking. That is a huge difference compared to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bichette. Yes, Bichette can be one of the best hitters in all of baseball. As you just look through his career, 2021, pretty sure he led the AL in hits. 2022, again, leading the AL in hits. 191, 189. The home run numbers were there, 29, 24 in those 2 years. 2023 as well, 20 home runs. Has a lot of injuries this year. He has calf strains. I believe this is the third time he's been on the IL. But again, another argument about this Bichette stuff, and this is kind of going a little bit off topic from the question, but still I think it's very relevant to this whole Bichette argument, is that people are saying that this guy is becoming injury prone. And again, you're looking at this injury history. Yeah, he has had a ton of injuries. I'll go through that after. But going by games played, 2019 was when he got called up. 2020, 29 games played. I believe that was the COVID year. 2021, 159 games played out of 162. 2022, 159 games played out of 162. 2023, 135. Again, you probably want a few more games. That's not necessarily crazy. And then this year, obviously, a lot of injuries, stuff like that. So you're looking at the games played, the best ability is availability. And Bichette has given you that availability. So I don't think he's just going to be this huge injury-prone player. Just sometimes you have injuries, you get unlucky. Just ask Joey Votto, who's been injured all season as well. Home run in AAA, by the way, the other day. But anyway, back on the Bichette stuff. Bichette, he's going to be fine next season. Again, maybe we've seen the best of Bichette, and that's something that they're going to have to discuss. But again, this guy's 26 years old. He's having one bad season. We were saying similar things about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last season. Again, Vladdy wasn't as bad as Bichette's playing this season. But overall, if you're going to rebuild for next year, then yes, you want to move on from Bichette. But this team has said multiple times, the front office, Russ Atkins multiple times, they want to retool. If you move on from Bichette, you're just putting yourself at a lesser advantage. You're giving yourself a worse chance of actually competing and being able to get your superstars together and actually compete for a playoff spot, if not just maybe an ALDS and ALCS appearance in the upcoming seasons.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? If we're talking about a rebuild, then absolutely there's still enough time for Vladdy where you could technically go through a 4 to 5 year rebuild and still have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But the question is, does Vladdy want to sit through a 4 to 5 year rebuild and re-sign in Toronto for that? I don't think so. So in my thinking is if they move on from Bo, you start the rebuilding process. And then the question is, does Vladdy stay? So in that sense, I guess you're talking about the demise of the era of Toronto Blue Jays baseball that we're in. Yeah, it would probably be calling her quits. If Bichette decides to stay, then you're committing, okay, we're going to make some offseason moves. We're going to make some offseason pickups. And that's where you can restock this team to have a shot. That's all I want to say. I know people are going to argue that they don't have a chance to have a shot anyway, but that is the thinking coming out of the management group for that scenario. Then we got Carter. I mean, there's a ton more here. I think we do one more. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back. There's so many different takes on what we were talking about on Friday. So just Terry actually sort of goes on back to what you're saying. If you want to make playoffs or have a shot at the title, then you have to do everything in your power to re-sign him. I don't know if Toronto will ever find a good hitter like this. Just build a winner and he'll want to stay. And I think that's a great point by Terry. I think Bichette, I know some people said that Bichette doesn't want to win. If he would have wanted to win, he would be playing better. But he wants to play for a winning baseball team. I mean, who doesn't realistically, especially when you were a star in this league for the past 3 seasons, Carter. So I realistically think that if Bichette stays through this offseason, they make enough moves where you can reinvigorate Bichette, like getting a piece like Anthony Santander or something like that. I know I bring his name up a lot because he's a big piece that I think the Blue Jays should go after in the offseason. We'll talk more about that later on. But I think that if you make some of those moves and put it back in the head of Bichette, this team can be good and then have a good season going up to the trade deadline next year, then maybe Bichette decides, okay, this is a team that I can stay with and commit to with Vladdy and with whoever else they have at that time. I think that's a good point by Terry.
Yeah, you know what Bichette can do. You know what he is like in his prime. You know what he's like when he's at his best. He is one of the best hitters in all of baseball. So again, you want to do everything you can to re-sign this guy. Why wouldn't you? Like you said, why wouldn't you want to play for a winning baseball team? It's going to be a lot more fun to play for a team like the Baltimore Orioles than it is like the Chicago White Sox, who are just on a notorious run and might actually set the record for the most losses in one season. Who would have fun playing on that team? Who would want to have fun playing on that team? Toronto Blue Jays are better than the Chicago White Sox, but again, they're not a good baseball team. Everything that could have went wrong this season has gone wrong. So with Bichette, there's so many factors to look at. He's having an off season. Does he want to be here? That's probably the main one. If he doesn't want to be here anyway, again, maybe if you can get a huge haul, you look at what you got for Yusei Kikuchi. You can get a haul for Bo Bichette that should be way more than that even. Then maybe you have a chance to retool for next year, depending on the assets you get back with Bo Bichette. And I kind of wanted to go back on this injury thing a little bit. I pulled up his injury history since the year of 2019. 2019, again, was the year that he got called up. So, again, you're just kind of getting him service time here. But he had a concussion in 2019. 2020, there was 2 injuries, a hamstring injury and a knee injury. So that's 2. Shin injury in 2021. That is 3 in the 3 years. I guess we'll count the concussion. We'll say 4 in 3 years. Then in 2022, he had another 2 injuries. And then 2023 had another 3 injuries. And then 2024, technically, there has been 5 injuries. Again, none of these have been crazy serious. He hasn't missed a ton of time going over those games played, 135 games prior to this year. What's the least amount of games played he played with the Toronto Blue Jays? So, again, if you're worried about this injury stuff, some people are saying it's a swing thing. That's why he's injuring his calf this season. I don't necessarily think it's that. I just think it's been one of those things that hasn't necessarily healed properly. He's probably rushed back a little bit. Once you have an injury, a lingering injury, it's a lot easier to re-aggravate that. So I don't think Bo Bichette is injury prone. So it's the wanting to be here. And it's just, do you believe Bo Bichette still has what it takes to be a good MLB player? I think majority of us still do. I don't think most Blue Jays fans feel like he actually can be a good MLB player again. And players have down years all the time. Again, you look at players that have fallen off. Tim Anderson, another guy that I was looking into that is a little bit similar to this is actually your boy, and it's Josh Donaldson in his last year with the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, you look at the other years, 2015, the MVP season. 2016 was very good again as well with 37 home runs. 2017, he had 33 home runs. And then in 2018, about 50 games played, only had 8 home runs. So again, you look at what that trade got us, Josh Donaldson for Julian Merriweather. His stint with the Toronto Blue Jays, not very good. Is that what's going to happen to Bo Bichette? Maybe that's a little crazy, but again, you're looking at Josh Donaldson going into that 2018 season. You're going to believe that it's going to be good again. So it's really depending on how this front office views Bo Bichette, and they've said multiple times that they do not want to trade Bo Bichette. They'd have to get an absolute haul back in return for him. They're obviously on the side that he should return to at least an above-average MLB player. And if you want to retool and you want to compete for next season, you're not trading one of the best players that probably is going to be on your team in the 2025 season. So those are the 3 things for me that if you're looking at Bo Bichette and his future with the Toronto Blue Jays, you're going to have to consider. And that's why for me, you look at all the facts, all the perspectives. Bo Bichette is going to help you so much more in your ability to have success and win baseball games than a bunch of prospects in return would be at this moment.
Yeah, and like you said, you brought up the injury thing a couple times, and I want to touch on that a little bit. You know what? Maybe we'll take a quick break, and then I do have a little bit of a piece on the injury before we get into a couple more ideas that some of our listeners had as well. So we'll read out some of those. We'll get into the injury a little bit, and then we'll be right back. We're just going to take a quick break. Today's episode of Locked On Blue Jays is brought to you by Liquid IV. I know what you're thinking. Why do I need when I could just have water? Well, Liquid IV is the perfect balance of electrolytes, water. It's so easy to use. I'm telling you guys, this is my saving grace. On weekends, on weekdays, I don't know what has happened to our apartment here, but it feels like 1,000,000 degrees all the time. I feel like the most dehydrated person. So I wake up every day, I rip open the easy to tear packaging, I throw it in some water, and I'm good to go the rest of the day. I feel like I'm just back, I'm amplified. It's sort of taken over my coffee because I just feel that good afterwards as is. And I honestly sort of moved away from the coffees, which is crazy. But Liquid IV has helped me do that. It's made me feel so much better. Powered by Live HydroSense, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. So, Carter, just getting back to the injury conversation that we had, I think people don't realize, I don't know, maybe it's a not realizing thing. I don't know what it is. But players get injured in the MLB very, very regularly. Even if it's something small, it's, maybe you miss a couple games. It happens. It's just a thing that's going to happen when you play 162 games a year, not counting playoffs. That's a lot of games to be ready for. It's every single day on these players. The wear and tear is going to happen. And I mean, you can look at actually, we were just golfing the other day. My brother's been golfing like crazy, like 2 to 3 times, not even that insane, but 2 to 3 times a week. he's got a blister on his hand. He said, I got to let it heal. We have a tournament next weekend, so I'm going to not play golf this week. And that's exactly, that's like the most minuscule injury, but it's something that's going to affect your game and not help you do anything, right? So a lot of these players go through that same thing. He actually made the point of saying, I never understood the baseball blister thing about pitchers until I got this. And now I feel like there's no way I could pitch a baseball with a blister like this. I'm like, exactly. People don't understand that even the most minuscule injuries in baseball with the finite movements that you're doing can affect you into the next game. And if you don't let something heal properly, it just keeps coming back. So when Bo Bichette talking about a couple injuries every year, excluding maybe the concussion and the hamstring that was re-aggravated, I mean, a lot of stuff is just little injuries that you have to take a few days off to get healed. It's not like he's breaking his leg or, I don't know if you want to say the Joey Votto twisted ankle, because who knows what's going on with that. But I think overall the injury concern, it isn't the biggest thing to be worrying about with Bo Bichette. Yes, it sucks that this happened this year, but I think on a guy that's having a down year as is, I think if he had to be injured at some point, I think you're pretty okay with it being this season.
And we go back to saying, like, George Springer has a better season. If a whole bunch of players, Alejandro, Kirk, Daulton, Varsho show up, Bo Bichette having a down year, yeah, it would still suck, but maybe it's hidden a little bit more. You're not going to be as in the spotlight with Bo Bichette as you would be if this Blue Jays team was having more success. But then again, you go look at it from the other perspective and you say, oh, this Blue Jays team is like fighting for a wild card spot. You probably say, oh, if Bo Bichette was actually hitting, this team might be in contention for an AL East spot. But overall, yeah, like these little injuries happen. Again, it's been the same injury over and over again. But that's just this season. There isn't a history going back to 2022, 2021 that this is going to be a lingering problem. It's just happening this season. And it's one of those things, like I said before, if it's a re-aggravation, which it has been, once you injure something once in a regular season, in a baseball season, which is 162 games, it is a lot easier to re-aggravate that injury again, especially when it's a lower body injury. You don't get a lot of rest days in the MLB. You're playing baseball every single day. There's a little tweak. You have something that doesn't necessarily feel right. You don't have a lot of recovery time. You're just going back into the next game. So it's a lot of stress on the body. Again, you're just looking at Bo Bichette for this year with his injuries. So looking at that, I'm not concerned at all with Bo Bichette's injuries. And another reason why I don't think it would be a good idea for Bo Bichette to be traded, this is kind of aside from the baseball, it's for Rogers. Rogers obviously has been a little bit cheap necessary when you're looking at it when it's offseason spending. But again, they have the 8th highest payroll in baseball. They just didn't necessarily address needs. But looking at Bo Bichette, he has the 19th highest purchased jersey in all of baseball. That's including the NL, that's AL, that's 30-some teams in the MLB. So you're looking at that 19th in the league. That's pretty solid, especially when you're looking at Bo Bichette in the season that he's had. So from a business perspective, it doesn't make any sense. We always talk about putting butts in seats as well. You trade Bo Bichette, probably not as many people are going to come to the Rogers Center. Like you look at Vladdy, look at Bo Bichette, you look at some of these big names. Maybe you still throw Kevin Gausman, stuff like that in there. Maybe not necessarily this year, but these are the guys that people will just show up just to see them. It doesn't have to even be with the Toronto Blue Jays playing good baseball. Bo Bichette is playing baseball. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is playing baseball. People will show up just for these guys. So if the Rogers Center wants to make money, which obviously any business wants to make money, they should keep Bo Bichette. You look at his track record, it makes sense to keep Bo Bichette. But overall, I saw a lot of injury concerns in the comment section. For me personally, I just don't see it as big of a problem. It's not been a reoccurring thing, so why stress about it now?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, again, there's so many comments. I was having to scroll through. I was trying to read them all, but there was a ton of them. We got back to some of you, but a lot of them were in the same sentiment, right? There was the same ideas coming out from a few. I still have a couple more that I really want to get into. A couple of them we've been through, like we said, trade Bo to get depth players, blah, blah, blah. Trade him in the offseason, below average defensively at one of the most valuable positions, re-sign Vladdy, rebuild the lineup through free agency and young talent. We've talked about that a little bit. Talking about the average defensively, Carter, I don't know, man. For a guy that's going to lead the AL in hits a few times already, and then, there's still so many years left of a guy who's developing. And honestly, haven't been hating his defense the past 2 seasons. Like, yes, the 2022 season, I believe, it was horrible to watch. But in the past, year and a half now, it really hasn't been that bad.
Well, especially from an eye test standard. If Bo Bichette's hitting, That's the main thing his team needs right now. If he's even top 5 in the AL in hits, you're not going to really care how good of defense he's playing. He hasn't shown to be a liability recently. Yes, you'd probably want his arm strength to be a little bit better, but he has cleaned up the accuracy immensely. You're looking at 2022, that season where he had some of the most errors in all of baseball. He was airmailing throws left and right. Now he's kind of gotten that shuffle step down. He's gotten the control down. The actually on his throws is a lot better. Obviously, he's not going to be making these crazy plays that like guys like Ellie De La Cruz is making. You have Bichette hitting, screw defense. Like at this point with this offense, the way the season has panned out, defense is not a problem anymore. Bichette makes an error from time to time. I'm not going to be one that's getting crazy mad about it. This guy can hit for average. He can get on base for some of our big dogs like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was some of our big dogs, pretty much our only big dog, I should say. That's a guy you want to get on base for. So looking at Bichette in the defense, his range is okay. Like he's, for me, as long as he's not a liability and he's hitting well, if he's one of the top hitters in all of baseball, I'm definitely not going to complain about this guy's defense. Yes, you do want it to be better, but it's not necessarily hurting the Toronto Blue Jays right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of the point I want to get. I did see that you responded to a guy on the defense sort of standpoint, which I thought was a really good comment back. But then we go into this one. This is from EJ. I don't even know how to say that. Metaros, whatever. EJ something. So congrats, is your comment. Bo isn't the answer for this Blue Jays team. TBH, all the prospects they got so far from everyone they've traded is already making a diminished farm system lucrative again. These kids, if produced properly, should be a great ball players, and the Jays will be the new Baltimore in 3 to 5 years with a strong young core built around a few veteran players. Now, part of what you said there, EJ, I agree with you. I think that some of the pieces that Toronto got back are very, promising. I think there's a lot of promising pieces that they've received back that they've built up, even with some of the draft picks. But the problem is, no matter what happens, prospects are a lottery ticket. Carter said that multiple times, right? You never know what's going to happen. You could have a guy like Ricky Tiedemann, who you expected to be in the MLB already. I know everybody doesn't like to hear that, but we expected him to be here. And the guy's made of glass. Talk about injury troubles. There's a guy for you. And so you never really know how these are going to pan out. When you have a surefire thing like Bichette, I think the key piece would be to have George Springer hopefully still being where he's at, but then you have Bichette, Vladdy, and then you have to make some huge offseason signings for some big names, for some superstars that would come in and bolster this lineup. The pitching looks good. The starting rotation looks good. The bullpen needs work as well in the offseason. And I'm just not sure if you're looking at this of saying that Bichette can be let go and you want to be rebuilt in 3 to 5 years. The question is, who are the Jays building around in those 3 to 5 years? Is it going to be Vladdy? Is he going to stick around like we talked about? I don't necessarily think that he will. I think he's another guy that he loves Toronto, but I think he wants to win as well. And if the Jays can't promise him a competitive baseball club for 3 to 5 years, I don't know, Carter. That's a tough deal. That's a tough pill to swallow as one of the league's superstar players.
Yeah, I've kind of said my piece on these prospects, but I'm going to kind of portray it in a different way this time. Looking at throughout Toronto Blue Jays history, you look at Nate Pearson, a highly touted prospect. Aaron Sanchez has had some success, obviously back with the team right now, but not necessarily panned out as you wanted him to be. Travis Schneider is another guy that had a lot of promise towards him. Obviously, just completely flopped, ended up being a bust. You look at these prospects, again, it's a lottery ticket. You don't know for sure who is going to pan out and who's not. Jake Bloss looks great in AAA. He's gone in the MLB again, very minimal service time, but didn't pitch necessarily that well. Joey Loperfido has been okay, very small sample size. But you look at guys like Will Wagner, you look at guys throughout the system, you don't know if they're going to produce at the major league level. It's a huge dice roll that you're taking here. You look at David Schneider early on in his career, as he looked really good, obviously setting records in that first season in 2023. Over the last month and a half has not looked very good, hasn't really found his footing, is a guy that's hitting 215. So these guys are going to be all up and down. But you're looking at Bichette, when you have his pedigree, you have so much history that has shown you how good he can be. And you're looking at a team right now. Again, you look at the past history with the Toronto Blue Jays. Bichette hasn't necessarily been the guy that's shown you results, but he hasn't been the problem either. You look at his history. You look at how he's done in the playoffs. He's been one of your best players. It's been the surrounding talent. It's been what Ross Atkins and company have put in front of this Toronto Blue Jays team. So you're going with this prospect stuff. Yeah, like you look at this team, you look what they got in a lot of these trades. You can get excited about it, but you don't know if these guys are going to work out. Like we said in the other episode, if you can hit on like 3 of these guys, you're going to be pretty content in the quality of prospects you got back. So overall with Bichette, unless you're getting blown away, you're getting something like I think it was the Trevor Rogers trade to the Baltimore Orioles for a guy like Connor Norby. Connor Norby looks really good. A guy that, again, looks like he's going to pan out, but he's a prospect. Doesn't have a lot of service time in the MLB, if any at all, with Connor Norby. So again, like it's nice to see with what things can amount to be and what prospects could end up being the upside you're going to love. When you have a guy as good as Bichette, is it necessarily a gamble I want to take on trading this guy and then possibly having nothing to show for it? At this point right now, if we're going to retool, I just can't get on that boat.
Yeah, and I know. And, I'm in the same boat car. That's exactly what I've been saying to people in the comments. And, I know we're sort of, rehashing some of this, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. This is a guy that very well could be a huge part of this future. Or if you make the trade, a huge part of starting a rebuild. And I know people are going to hate to hear that, but I think we have to look at this as a broad sort of spectrum, right? Of what are all the possibilities. And yes, there is a slight possibility that they trade Bo, and Loperfido is great. Bloss is great. A guy like Cutter Coffee or McAdoo come up and they're unbelievable. But if they're not, you're committing to a 3 to 5 year rebuild to a guy like Vlad. And why would he want to do that? He's made it clear that he wants to be on a winning team as well. He loves Toronto, but he wants to be on a winning team as well. I just think that there's a big conversation that's going to happen around Bichette. And I mean, there's a couple more comments we can get into, but I mean, it's sort of, we're sort of starting to rehash the same stuff here. And I think we need to wait for some more information to come out. Again, this is coming from Ben Nicholson-Smith. We want to make that clear. This isn't coming from some bum, whatever, or one of us just deciding, what's going to happen if Bichette gets traded? No, it's coming from a pretty reliable source that has been telling us that they're not even close to a deal.
See, and saying that again, though, you look at John Morosi with the Shohei Ohtani stuff, that obviously didn't come to fruition. Scott Mitchell was a guy that said Ricky Tiedemann had no structural damage in his elbow, and now he's having Tommy John. So things like this, again, how reliable are they? You definitely have to be skeptical. We're not saying it's 100% true. Bichette wants out of Toronto. Again, like there's so many different perspectives you could get. You're never going to know until it's actually official. This is Bichette right now. Again, we go into the argument of there's a lot of comments that were saying he just doesn't look like he wants to be there. That again, there's different perspectives on that. For me, you're on a bad baseball team. It's not fun losing. Nobody has fun losing baseball games more than you're winning baseball games. It's gonna be tough to see guys having fun out there. Like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has always been a happy-go-lucky guy. You're looking at a bunch of other guys. Like you look at Chris Bassitt. Chris Bassitt looks like he hates his life every single time he's on the mound, even when he's pitching 8 shutout innings. So you can't take too much from people's emotions out there. You want to see them that they actually care. And has Bichette done that? I don't think we've seen him recent enough for me to even remember how his at-bats have looked. I know he was swinging a lot of sliders down the way. Wasn't necessarily great. But again, we've rehashed a ton of this on Bichette. We're just going to have to wait and see how things work. If Leo Jimenez plays good, Acid Barger, Ernie Clement's been raky, which has been nice to see. So you got to see how you evaluate guys on your own team. Even the pitchers. You look at Kevin Gausman. You think he's going to bounce back next season. Chris Bassitt, he's getting up there in age. Do you think he's going to be able to continue to be an effective pitcher? You look at guys throughout this lineup. Can Alejandro Kirk take a step? Can Daulton Varsho take a step? Can Spencer Horwitz continue to play good baseball? So it's not all just on Bichette for this team's success. So overall, yeah, you want these supporting guys to be able to kind of rally around Vlad, and you want Vlad to be able to continue his success. But overall, you want your best players to be out on the field. And I will just believe this team gets significantly worse if you decide to trade Bichette in this offseason. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to stay here, you might as well get some assets back for him. So they're going to have to show their hand at some point, and they're not going to do that until this offseason.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're not going to tip their cap too early here. They're going to see what happens and what moves can be made in this offseason, I think, before they make any final decision on Bichette. I honestly believe that Bichette won't be traded this offseason as much as Ben Nicholson-Smith made it clear that was a possibility, and more than likely possibility, I'm going to say. I fully believe that it's going to be a trade deadline thing, if anything, and that's if this baseball team doesn't turn it around next season. So I think it's going to come down to a guy that probably should get fired, Ross Atkins, but see what he can do in this offseason, because I fully believe that he's still going to have his job, ridiculously enough, even though he should be gone, but whatever. It's going to come down to him and what he can do in this offseason to put other pieces around guys like Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And we'll see if that can happen. There's a lot of time yet before that offseason comes around. A lot of stuff to go over. There's going to be tons of news coming out. Again, like always, guys, we want to thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs. Here in the dog days of summer, prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to be right back. We're going to do a quick series recap, Carter. And then, we'll get out of here sort of on this sort of, I don't want to say rehashed Monday, but oh my goodness, you guys sort of loved the last video and we love the comments. So it was fun for us to go back through it, sort of change our opinions a little bit, I think, and or just double down. It was fun to do, it was fun to think about. So again, thanks for all the comments and the support. We're going to be right back with the series recap.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. I've watched pretty much every single Toronto Blue Jays game up to this point, and when I watch the game with my friends, we always find ourselves predicting the next outcome in at-bats, whether it's strikeouts, hits, home runs, just crazy plays, but we're always making these little wagers, and Prize Picks gives me the opportunity not just to prove myself to my friends, but also make some money off my picks. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond into your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick of more than or less than, and add them to your Prize Picks entries today. If you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download Prize Picks and start making your picks today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
So, Carter, the Blue Jays dropped the series to the Yankees, but to be honest with you, I was sort of okay with what I saw. Yeah, the Saturday game didn't go as you wanted it to, for sure. But at least the Blue Jays did win, and it felt like, weirdly enough, competitive baseball from a team that I'm not expecting a whole lot out of, which is nice to see. I think at the end of the day, I think when I go into these series now, I'm expecting the Blue Jays not to do well. So when they surprise me with a little bit of decent performances, I'm happy. I don't want to say happy, but I'm at least I'm not feeling crappy about watching baseball. It's like, oh, they took the Yankees to extra innings. Okay. They won against the Yankees. Okay. They got killed on Saturday, but whatever. It's fine. We're here. So again, just going over the quick recap. Friday, the Blue Jays win 8-5. Saturday, 8-3 loss. And then Sunday, yesterday, the Blue Jays dropped 4-3 in extra innings. Carter, I guess just as an entirety, what are your sort of feeling about this series? I mean, I know there's not much to take away, but just what are you feeling?
Yeah, I got to go against you here. I'm not impressed at all with what I've seen. I'm not saying I'm surprised, but I'm not happy with it. You look at Garrett Cole, you look at Aaron Judge just launching home runs off this team. You got old man DJ LeMahieu with his 500 OPS walking off the Toronto Blue Jays. So again, I'm not surprised at the alternative. You look at this team, you look at the roster that they're putting out, but you're losing to the New York Yankees. I'm never going to be happy about that. I'm never even going to be okay with that. You lose a series, yeah, you win one game, whatever. That the offense showed up. It was fun to watch that game. But overall, other than that, you're walking Aaron Judge every single at-bat. I'd rather just watch them pitch to Aaron Judge. At least he could hit a 1,000,000-foot home run. But looking at this team, Verdugo just is annoying. Anthony Volpe might be my least favorite player in the entire league. Just a guy that I just am wishing failure on at all times. Definitely not excited about this series. The only thing that I did like is that we hit Marcus Stroman around. Screw that guy. Ex-Blue Jay, loudmouth, whatever. Good for him to get him out of the game early. But other than that, Vladdy had a good weekend. That's where we're at.
And I'm not saying that I'm thrilled about where the position we're at, but I think I've come to a point of, okay, I get to watch Vlad do his thing. I get to watch the Blue Jays, on Friday, I get to watch the Blue Jays win a baseball game against a team I hate. I don't know. I wasn't expecting, I go into these series not expecting the Blue Jays to win a game. Never mind, putting up, at least they brought the Yankees to extra innings. Yeah, you would have liked to get that win, but we would have liked to get 1,000,000 wins earlier this season. And honestly, I'm at the point now where if I look back at the beginning of this season and I'm, I was mad you were hitting couch cushions. You were, we were upset. And that's not where I am anymore. I think I'm happier with where where I'm at mentally at this stage because I'm so sort of clocked out. I'm like, okay, baseball's on. I'm just going to have a good time. I'm going to watch my team. So it's not, I guess it's not happy. It's just maybe delusion or acceptance is probably the right word that I'm looking for. So I don't know. It's where we're at. They got 8 runs that first game. That's where I'm hanging my hat because the second game was terrible. And I mean, Sunday's game, it wasn't great. I mean, 3 runs is not never good. I don't know, Carter. I don't know what to say about the games anymore. I mean, we could go into a full in-depth recap of this guy did really well, but it's sort of exactly like you said. It's exactly what was. I think it was more than expected, but I think it was expected to say the least.
Yeah, looking at these matchups, like Wyrod has, I guess, an okay game. Goes 4 2/3 innings. Pulled fairly early in the game. I think it was 76 pitches. Kevin Gausman, I think, looked pretty good. Other than that moonball to Aaron Judge, that thing was middle. Again, 477 feet. It's kind of a cool home run to watch. Unfortunately as that is to say, with Aaron Judge, like he is a fun player to watch. I wish if we had our own Aaron Judge, I think we'd be in a way more exciting spot in this podcast. But I guess you could say, in a sense, we do have our own Aaron Judge, in that being Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So over his last 16 games, again, we've just been pumping his tires. But you're looking at these stats, you look at that the eye test, whatever you want to look at, it's been absolutely insane. Like that's been one positive piece for a team that has had so many negatives throughout the whole season. But anyway, 31 hits in his last 59 at bats. 18 of those are extra base hits, 9 home runs, 18 RBI. So that is a 525 average and an OPS of 1.721, which is absolutely insane. I think his OPS is up to 929 now at this point. I believe that is 7th now in the MLB. Just what a run for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Pay the man. We need this guy in Toronto Blue Jay blue for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I agree. Another guy, Carter, I got to give a shout out to. He's been good all year. That's Chad Green, man. He is an absolute dog. I think he's our best piece right now. I think without a doubt. He is just striking guys out left, right, and center. I think it was on the Friday game. He struck out all 3 batters. He just looks like a beast. And I pray to God that, he has a good season next year with Jordan Romano coming back. Hopefully you get a bounce back from Erik Swanson as well. Because I think Chad Green fits perfectly into this bullpen, and he's the guy that you can sort of add other pieces to make this bullpen better. But I think we got to give him sort of his flowers as well.
Yeah, it's looked really good. Has been one of the only solid pieces in a Toronto Blue Jays bullpen that has struggled immensely throughout the season. One day we're going to have to go through this bullpen and see who we're actually like confident in or just like okay with pitching in this bullpen. Again, not everyone has to be Chad Green, but you want guys to be able to get you outs, to have effective innings. You don't need everyone to be just the greatest pitcher of all time. You need your team to be working together, and you need guys to get outs. So overall, like from this series, yeah, Chad Green did good stuff. Vlad did good stuff. Ernie Clement looked great, I thought, as well. Joey Loperfido had a triple in that first game. Just that one just chills, obviously. And then Ryan Yarborough makes his first appearance on the 3rd game of the Yankee series. Has a clean inning, just goes 1-2-3. You'll love to see it. But other than that, just not the greatest baseball of all time from the Toronto Blue Jays. But again, we've taken the emotion out of it. I pretty much all the way for me, I'm still not happy when the Toronto Blue Jays lose, but I'm definitely not letting it ruin my day anymore. I kind of know where we're at with this team. Again, we've said it on the podcast before. We just want to see the Buffalo guys show out, and we want to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit 4 million home runs.
Yeah, Carter. You know what? There's not much else to say. We have so much more content to still get into, covering the deadline, some of the new pieces. We want to look at the prospects, and we're going to get into that all this week. Sort of take a quick look at everybody. And then, yeah, we're going to continue to keep up with the baseball game, seeing who impresses us. I think that's the big thing of looking forward into next season. I know that's terrible for some of you to hear, that we're going to have to, what can we pick apart from this year's baseball team to carry us into next year? That's probably not what everybody wants to hear, but it's where we're at. Again, as always, we want to thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully, he is fantastic. He had us on. We had a blast talking to him. I know that was when the whole John Schneider stuff was going nuts. So you guys go back and find that episode if you'd like. Or if you really want to see it, where we just sort of go off on John Schneider, we can even post that video. I think I still have it saved somewhere, so we can post that one for you guys on our channel as well. Let us know what you guys want. And if you have any more thoughts on Bo Bichette, if you have any more thoughts on whether this team's direction is going to be, make sure you leave us a comment. Even if it's a question about this Jays team in general, put mailbag at the top or something, and we'll make sure we answer it in the videos. We want to bring you guys more into these videos because that's sort of the part of the fun, right? Is answering your guys' questions, having these debates. I know, Justin's a great guy. He's our roommate. He listens to the podcast, and he always gives us his takes too, because I think it's a different look, right? With instead of me and Carter, who watch every single game and checking stats and everything like that, I think it's good to get outside perspective. So thanks, Justin. Thanks to all of you guys who commented. It was a lot of fun reading through all of them this weekend. So hopefully we can continue that going. Keep watching, keep the debates going. We love to have them.